So thank you very much for this introduction. I do trying to apply the modern theories of nationalism to the practical things that I know from my journalistic experience. And it is related to Israel, and it's also related to, can you hear me? Is it okay?
Yes.
Yes, it's okay. It's okay now? Can you see me?
Yes, in such a way. Oh, okay.
This is okay.
Yes.
So I prepared a short presentation because I wanted to be precise and short in this huge topic and stormy topic of Israeli nationalism versus multiculturalism, which is one of the serious modern problem. So I would like to start with short and interesting recognition that I could found recently. First of all, it's recognition. It's surprising because it's a Muslim leader of Israel. It's Mr. Mansour Abbas, who is a representative of the head of Ram Party and member of coalition, and he recently made an interesting statement that Israel is a Jewish state. So it was really surprising to hear it from the Muslim person, because Israeli Arabs till now did not recognize the state of Israel as a Jewish state, and always wanted to have two-nation state, and always wanted to prepare to always wanted to have equal status. And what is written now in media, that it's a revolution in Israel, actually, because Arabs are no more associated with Israeli left. It's mainly, which was always like Israeli left to represent Arabs as their natural partners. And now it is more with central or right part of the Israeli politics, which is not less surprising. And is this part of my speech, I'd like to relate to talk of Professor Bagirova about multiculturalism, and Professor Talgat Khalif, multiculturalism and multicultural country. So despite that, Israel was always accused by some politicians and some critics from abroad that it's not a multicultural society, not a multicultural country. But I found the definition, which is recent, and it's says that, in fact, de facto, Israel is multicultural society, multicultural country, which does not accept multiculturalism. And this is, in my opinion, extremely interesting. And probably, as we can see the search for new model of the country, nationalist country, and on the other side, countries that can protect the rights of minorities, the rights of different cultures, the diversity of the country. So that is surprising. And if we look at the leading nationalist series, we can see a very interesting proof. How can that be? First of all, Israel is in the center of a big discussion between nationalist schools. And of course, very important and big academic school is Marxist and post-Marxist school. First of all, if we look at Eric Hobsbawm and this discussion, one of the modern critic of multicultural, of nationalism, said one of the most important, most important discussion is between Eric Hobsbawm and Anthony Smith. So I'm trying to go back to Eric Hobsbawm, who actually completely rejected the idea that Israel is a country which is rooted in a distant past. So I hope my presentation is opening now, so it will be easier for me to prove my ideas. And in the meantime, I'll tell my thesis, my idea. My idea is that Israel, as a country with a strong national element, strong ethno-religious element, and at the same time is pretty much multicultural country. So my thesis is this model of combination of a strong element of ethno-religious with democratic protection of the rights of minority. This is probably a good way for modern countries, and this is how to build a multicultural community and avoid multiculturalism in the form and in the way that it exists in many countries in Europe, in Canada, and the United States. After I'll make this comparison and I'll give examples from the Central Asia. Kazakhstan was mentioned already. So as I said, according to definition of organization which is called MITVIM, the Israeli political research, which usually pretty critical regarding Israel, but even this organization says that Israel is multicultural community. Next, we have a very interesting definition that I mentioned, definition by Mansour Abbas. Israel is a Jewish country, if we like it or not. And our problem is to determine what is our position in the country, how we should act. And that is actually a historical step, because this is the first time we can hear from the Israel Arab leader that this is a Jewish state and not the state of two nations and not the state of every citizen. So that is our revolution. Then, as I mentioned, the theoretical discussion. The major, that I mentioned already, the major theories of nationalism, in particular Smith and Hobsbawm, have made use of the test case of Zionism and Israel to strengthen and justify the assertion of their own theories, strengthen or justify the assertion of their own theories. As I mentioned, there are many thousands of theories, and the leading schools are as I just mentioned, Smith and Hobsbawm. Eric Hobsbawm, the known theorist, who suggested the term invented traditions, described Zionist attempt to derive their desire to create a modern Jewish state from ancient Jewish links with the land of Israel as extremely illegitimate. As we see now, just a couple of decades later, even Arab leaders can recognize that it's really a Jewish state. But then we can turn to Anthony Smith, a great theorist, which suggested ethno-politic theory. And he proved that Israel is rooted in the old traditions. he points to the Jews and the Gregorian Armenians as examples of ethnic communities which already formed and disseminated identity, forming myths and narratives. Major cultural resources for nationalism and myths of origin, ethnic collections and sacred territories, as well as memories of heroes and golden ages, were crucial to the formation of many stranded ethno-history. So we have a very interesting turn here. It's a clash on the philosophy level, and then I will go to sociology, so how it implemented on practice, how we can see the expression of it on practice. And we can see more and more proof. Our practice, Israeli practice, Israeli real modern life is a proof of Anthony Smith's theory. And it's very interesting in a point of view of old ethnic cultures. How much is important for the modern society? Smith believes that nationalism are deeply rooted in the tradition, in heroes, in sacred territories, in myths, and what is formed around it. This is a real nationalism. And actually, there is a discussion between old culture and new culture. I think Israel and old culture, in certain point, there is a strong description by Smith how old culture actually goes to the modern reality and becoming prevalent, and we can see the justification of it in Israel and in modern countries in the Central Asia, in Eastern Europe, that was mentioned already. So first, let's go to just a moment. Let's go to sociology, how Israel destroyed the melting pot and built de facto multicultural society and avoided accepting multiculturalism. So I even had a discussion with Golda, who mentioned that the Turam should be checked if we have if it's a multicultural society and not multiculturalism. So regarding to, according to some authors, Israel is a multicultural society. How we can get it? First of all, Israel really passed the attempts of construction the society. So it corresponds to idea of Hobsbawm that society was constructed. It's an idea of new Jewish person, like it was an American person, and the idea of melting pot is a Jewish idea that was first tried in the United States. And I even found Israel John Will, who suggested this idea. So Americans, people who arrived to America from many countries and entered the cultural melting pot, and should be turned to be strong as steel, something like this. And we have very similar things in Israel. If we look at 60s, 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, we can see the melting pot as immigrants from different countries who came to Israel, were expected to enter this melting pot and become new, strong Israelis, brave, different compared to Jews that died during the Holocaust. And it was a pretty constructed community. It was had many problems. Until now, we can see the evidences of trauma, for example, by immigrants from Yemen, by immigrants from Morocco. So this attempt of artificial, of constructed community had certain problems. And it was a new culture that at a certain point were expected to crash with the old culture. How this old culture came in a surprising form of big aliyah from the former Soviet Union. So according to Israel's Central Bureau of Statistics, between 1989 to 2020, more than 1,200,000 immigrants, Olim, arrived in Israel, compared to just 164,000 in 70s. So different Israeli community looked at the example of Russian Aliyah and expected that Russian Aliyah would also enter the melting pot and just pass the process that it existed in the country. But it was too big mass of people to accept the idea of melting pot and forget about the culture, the old culture of Jews in Russia. So after a very a few years of struggle, the system of melting everybody, of erasing the culture which was brought from abroad was destroyed. I remember in this case, I'm really afraid to go back to too many examples since I'm a journalist, and I remember such stories, but it were people from, for example, the Ministry of Education who came to kindergarten to check if children integrated completely, and it's difficult to understand who is an immigrant and who is a native-born Israeli. So I remember the situation when parents said that they are great because the commission couldn't find the boy who was completely like Israeli boy after just few months of being in the kindergarten. So many other things, and people were afraid to speak Russian. And it was endless stories of traumatic experience. But then, by press of critical mass of people, the society, the educational system accepted that Israeli can be Israeli with certain color, and I found an interesting definition by Yossi Herpas, American Israeli scientist, who said that after the arrival of big Russian Aliyah, Israelis stopped being neutral. They're not neutral anymore. We can see Russian Israelis, we can see Morocco Israelis, we can see Yemen Israelis, and many others, including, and this is very interesting and significant, that Israel was always trying to distance from Europe. And now we can see the rise of European communities rooted in European culture. For example, Polish community. The Facebook page, Polish Mother, Ima Polenia, has 40,000 followers already. So people of Israel discovered how good it is not to be neutral Israelis, to know their culture, to identify themselves with cultures from their predecessors and grandfathers, grandmothers, and so on. So first is this new development expressed in saying about trauma, it was a big flow of, for example, evidence from Moroccan people about their trauma. As I mentioned, till now, there is an investigation in media about trauma of people from Yemen and people from Muslim communities who passed a very traumatic experience of living in Ma'barot, so-called Ma'barot, poor housing. But after the expressing of trauma, which is actually a very important component, if you look at Smith, so it's a very important emphasis, national trauma, the trauma that unites people. So it's very special for Israeli communities. And then Israel got, just a moment. Israel got a new interesting phenomena of prosperity of different cultures. For example, the intermarriage, marriages between different communities is on the rise. It was just 20% in 90s, so it's the beginning of Russian Aliyah. It was 30% in 30% just a decade later, and then now it's 40%, as you can see in this photo. And I took a photo from the page, Russian Facebook page. This is a wedding in Morocco style, and the bridegroom is Russian and the girl is Moroccan. So it's a new family, new Israeli, new Jewish family, and the people, let's hope, will be happy. But this is a phenomenon that while we have a prosperous life of different communities, which is also an element of being multicultural, the relations between them are pretty good. And what is important, how state is maintaining this. Israel has never tried to reach the total equality, which is very normal for multiculturalism. So it's always a fight for money, for the support of the state, for example, and I'll speak about it when I touch the topic of non-Jewish immigrants in the country. So the budget is never equal, and there is a competition between communities and between cultural institutions and between all the bodies representing such communities. But it's never against the basic construction of the country and its identity. And then I'd like to go to another very important part of the Israeli identity, which is very much contradictory. It's probably the most problematic point of the model of Israeli nationalism is a decision of Ben-Gurion not to separate religions from the state, which is till now, it's one of the most discussable elements of the society. But probably it may be, as we could see now, one of the elements that provides a certain kind of stability, because it's an important element of identity, that Jewish people are very different, but it's important for them to know that there is a cornerstone, there is a core point that this is Judaism. If they're religious or non-religious, if this secular or not secular. And many secular Israelis are becoming religious. It's a fact, it's also on the discussion. And according to statistic of the Central Bureau of Statistics, I also checked it with organization Maalot, is a center of investigation history of Jews from the former Soviet Union. Not less than 5% of immigrants from the former Soviet Union, previously secular people, became religious, and much more became observant. So it's an important part of the identity. In this specific photo, it's a story that I personally know. I decided to use only photos from my own collections. So this is ultra Haredi family, as you could see. And
I apologize, Victoria. I think you should advance to the conclusions because we have not much
so my
time.
conclusion. Okay, Golda, it's not a problem. My conclusion is very simple. I believe that in modern world, a national state with strong nation idea and with strong religious element have a better chance for stability and for a diverse and multicultural society than a country where multiculturalism is declared as a modern model, because it provides equality in practice, and it provides the support of the country, but those different groups do not separate it from the country, and they are. It's like the solar system. You have a very strong element in the center, and you have many groups around it. But this is a system. This is a system, and the groups are not separated. I do think that Israel can be called inclusive community, like the goals that now is declared in Europe. So Israel, till certain extent, has it already. And Golda, I'm sorry, I didn't have time to finish. The most important and problematic point was non-Jewish immigration to Israel. So if I have a few minutes, I'll because it was problematic. So how non-Jewish groups can exist in the country? They do not have religious rights. They have problems with marriages and other things. How they, and there were even expectations that those groups, including big groups of Russian-speaking immigrants who are non-Jewish, now it's according to statistics, it's not less than 300. How will they survive in the society? And what is interesting is that they accepted the Israeli model of nationalism and feel very nice. They have problems which are solved and resolved on personal level, like marriages. I don't say that it's completely fair, but they are solved. And we don't have the examples of creating the groups which could be opposite to the state. And that is a very, actually it's a very important point, that those groups, even not accepting a religious right, accept the social model, accept the national identity, and live pretty successfully, having civil rights, civil rights, they are political and economic.